welcome back to my channel. This video is one I never thought I would have to make in a million years. This is a story and it's gonna be a long one, so sit back and enjoy the video, grab some popcorn, grab something to drink. This is a story of how I almost lost my son. My son is 10 years old and he hadn't been feeling good for some time now, to be honest. We could probably even date it back, though it's kind of hard to say, back a year to our Disney World trip. He wasn't feeling good then. It could have very well been heat exhaustion, but some of his symptoms are very much related to this incident. And the month leading up to this incident, he was having like tummy issues every time he ate. And so we were like, maybe he has like a gluten intolerance, maybe he has a dairy issue. I was like talking to like my best friend, we were trying to figure it out. So at home we were testing gluten-free. We did like a gluten-free diet and it helped a tiny bit, but not really, to be honest. We have chronic headaches, it runs in the family, but he was getting more headaches than normal. He was tired all the time. He never wanted to go to school. And I just thought it was because he was like hating school, and I honestly was monitoring him because I thought he was depressed. I thought my son was depressed, and I had reached out to his school counselor, like, hey, can you check in with him? It's just not normal. Like, he used to enjoy school and now he like hates it. And like his grades weren't suffering, but he just was always sick. And honestly, he was missing so much school. It was getting and because I was letting him stay home because he said he didn't feel good and I was trusting him. And it was getting to the point where I'm like, are you really sick, or are you just depressed and you hate school that much that you don't want to go? And so like I was like, these are all symptoms and signs of what was coming. It was a Sunday and he had thrown up only one time, but he threw up and it went all over the carpet. He literally had a garbage can 2 inches away. I got mad at him for not making it into the garbage can. Like, not mad, but you could tell I was annoyed and frustrated with him while he's like literally sick and dying, though I didn't know that. A lot of these things I'm telling you are things that I beat myself up for to this day. These are all things that I wish I could take back and catch, because my poor baby was literally just hanging on for his life. Sorry. So he threw up on a Sunday and he wasn't feeling good. So Monday I went to work and I let him stay home. He still wasn't feeling any better. He said he threw up again, which is when I was like on my way home. And in fact, I left early that day. I left early, like around 3-ish, and I went home and I again thought that, like, did you really throw up, or are like what's going on? So I decided he did throw up, so he was like resting in bed, and I tried to bring him like a cold rag and I brought him a pot to like have on his bed, and I brought him gluten-free like salt chips and some water and Gatorade, and we went to bed that night, and he came into my room like 2 a.m. and was like on the floor, and he was like, I have a headache, I don't feel good. I threw up again, and so I gave him medicine, sent him back to bed, and told him to just, keep drinking water and stay hydrated. And I messaged my work at that point saying I'd stay home, and I thought it was some kind of flu bug. My plan was to stay home with him that morning, try and make him some like chicken broth and see if he could keep that down. And my fiance Ryan was getting ready to leave for work. It was like 7 a.m. And I wanted to get Vari out of his room. I wanted him to like get some fresh air. So I was bringing him down to the couch. I was like, come on. He couldn't even go down the stairs. And my son is very dramatic. So sometimes it's hard to tell. Like he'll like twist an ankle and he'll limp on it for like 2 weeks. Like he can be very dramatic. And I'm like, he's like breathing super heavy, like, and he's like going down the stairs on his butt because he can't walk down them. And I'm like, you're freaking me out. Like, are you being serious right now? Do I need to call an ambulance? Like, what's going on? And he's like, no, I'm fine. And then like Ryan comes around the corner and he's like, you need to tell us like what's up. He's like, do you need to go see a doctor? And he's like, yeah, I think I need to see a doctor. I'm like, okay, I'll call the doctor. Because of COVID going on, I didn't want to just take him in. So I was like, okay, let's get you to the couch. And we're trying to make him walk to the couch. And he's like bent over in pain, excruciating pain in his side. And that's when I get worried. Not that I wasn't already worried, but that's when I like start to freak out because I'm like, it could be appendicitis. Like his appendix could be rupturing. So I'm like, we're just going to go to the ER. And I'm like, can you walk to the car, Vari? And he's like, no. Ryan had to carry him into the car. We get in the car. I'm pregnant. I had my membrane swept the day before on Monday. I'm 38 weeks pregnant and due at any time. So this is great. We go to the ER. Ryan has to carry him in. They put him in a wheelchair. We go back and they're like trying to run tests and stuff. It seems like it's taking forever. We were there for a few hours, and then a doctor comes in and notifies us that, and also I want to say they're giving him fluids. His lips are so dry. And I just thought it was from like throwing up, being dehydrated. His lips are like peeling. They're so dry. Like he looks like a fish out of water. Like it doesn't look good. And like he has severe dry mouth as well. So he's like doing this thing with his mouth, and like nothing is hydrating him. They're giving him fluids, and the doctor comes in and they're like, I'm pretty sure he's in diabetic ketoacidosis, and we need to transfer him to a children's hospital. The ambulance team is on their way, and we're transferring him. At this point, I didn't understand the severity of it. I'm like, okay, so he's a type 1 diabetic. And we're in the ER, so they're not really confirming anything really. They want like a specials team to come in, and I'm like, okay, so we're getting transferred to Children's Hospital. Probably gonna be there overnight. And so it takes a while, but like an hour later, the ambulance gets there. We're transferring him in an ambulance. I ride with him. Ryan goes home. He hadn't showered yet. He was on his way to work without a shower. But he needed a shower. So I sent him home to... No, that's not right. That was the next day. Or was it that day? I think he was going home to get clothes for us and to shower, I think. Or maybe he showered at home. No, that was a different day. He went home to get more stuff for us, and he showered that day. So anyways, I sent him home to get clothes for me and Vari for like overnight and for himself. And so he went home, and we're in the ambulance. Vari seems okay still. He's kind of like sleeping, sort of, resting his eyes on the ambulance ride there. We get there, we are put in our room, and Vari he starts trying to rip out IVs and fighting nurses off of him, and he starts spewing like random things. He's not making any sense. And I guess they call this delirium. He didn't know who I was. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know where he was at. And this lasted a while. It probably lasted 10 minutes. They got him to calm down. They strapped his arms down, like they do for patients who might commit suicide or who are a harm to themselves. They strapped his wrists down to the bed, and the whole time that he's in this like state, I'm just trying to calm him down. The nurses are holding him down, like his legs and his arms, and I'm just like rubbing his head. I'm like, I love you. You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And like, I didn't know what else to do. And so they were telling me that this is a state of delirium and that his brain is swelling and they need to get the swelling down. Also, if his O2 stats don't come up, they're gonna have to intubate him. So at this point, I'm starting to realize this is, they're starting to tell me how serious this is. His diabetic ketoacidosis, they hadn't had any labs back yet, but from what they were seeing, his diabetic ketoacidosis was bad. He's like near death at this point. Okay, so I'm back. So after Vari's first state of delirium, I text my fiance, and Vari's stable right now. Like at that point, he's stable. They were starting him on they had to change the fluids. So they can't just give him straight fluids to hydrate him because he has brain swelling. They have to change it. He's also a diabetic. So in order to get his blood glucose levels down, they can't just give him straight like sugar water. They have to give him, it has to be a mix because you can't spike his sugars more. And then you also don't want his brain to keep swelling. So they were adjusting, like getting all that hooked up. Vari seemed to be settled for the moment. He was starting to come back, like he kind of knew who I was again. I texted my fiance. I'm like, you need to hurry. It's not good. It's bad. I need you here. So he was on his way already, and so he gets there, and almost right before he walks in, I notice Vari is different again. He's not the same. I just noticed something is off, and I'm like, it's starting again. He's gonna have a bout of delirium. And at this point, we still have lots of doctors and nurses in the room. We're in the ICU. We have lots of doctors and nurses in the room with us. I'm like, it's starting again. I'm like watching the monitor as well. His heart rate was starting to spike again. And I just knew something was wrong. And right around that time when that happened, Ryan comes in the door and he's setting stuff down, and Vari goes into another state of delirium. And Ryan is holding his legs down, trying to calm him down. Ryan's having a hard time too, even though it's not his son. We love all of our kids so much, and it's very hard to see. And Ryan does have severe anxiety, so, and hospitals are not a good place for him either. They do like give him more anxiety. And so Vari goes into another state of delirium, and Ryan's holding his legs down, and I'm again just like petting his head and trying to talk to him, telling him it's gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay, just try and breathe. And he is spewing numbers. He's saying 5, 7, 5, 7, and he's not making any sense. mind you, before this happened, which is how I knew he was off, is he was trying to write on my arm as if he couldn't speak. He was trying to write on my arm. So he's like spelling something out on my arm. I'm like, I don't understand, honey. Like, do you want a pen and paper? Like, what's going on? Like, what's wrong? And then he got it out and he was like, you suck, which was funny. It got us to laugh a little bit, but I just knew something was off. So he had another state of delirium, and the doctor was like, we cannot have this happen again. If it happens again, we have to intubate him. If his vitals don't improve, so luckily it did not happen again. The medicine they started giving him, what was like a fluid, started to help reduce the brain swelling. So we were in the hospital for a total of 6 days. We spent 4 days in the ICU, and I never left his side, not for a single second, except maybe to go to the bathroom. I was 38 weeks pregnant, so you gotta go potty. But I would only go to the bathroom if he had Ryan there right next to him. So the scary part about this is that, well, aside from him dying, obviously, I was 38 weeks pregnant. I had my membrane swept the day before this incident happened. And, what? And I ended up losing my mucus plug that Thursday. He was still in the ICU. We were getting ready to get transferred like that next day, I think, to like general population or whatever. I say that like we're in prison. To whatever they call like the general floor. And we're at a children's hospital. They have a diabetic team there, an entire team that is that deals with these cases or situations. And my mucus plug, I lose my mucus plug, and I just start crying. I start crying on the toilet, and I come out of the bathroom, I'm crying, Vari's napping, and I'm telling Ryan, I can't have this baby right now. He cannot come. I am freaking out because I'm like, I cannot leave my baby's side, the big baby, not the 10-year-old, and go have a baby right now. I just can't. I can't leave his side. It's not happening. And so we did notify, we did tell all the nurses and stuff immediately when I got there. When we got there, after Vari was stable, of course, that if I were to go into labor, I had 2 people that I would want there at Vari's bedside at all times. Because of COVID, this was going on during COVID, the rules hadn't gotten that strict at that point. You were still allowed 2 visitors, mom and dad. But because of the situation, they would make a special exemption because children need support people there. And so they were, I had 2 people that I wanted to be there at all times. God forbid I had gone into labor at that point. They also had a wheelchair outside the door at all times, which was funny. I also became known as the pregnant mom. We had, they rotate nurse shifts, and these nurses came in and they're like, oh, you're the pregnant mom. They were very nice there. Amazing team. But anyways, so Vari started to improve slowly. They were drawing his blood every 4 hours. They were taking finger pricks every hour to test his blood sugar. He didn't have any more states of delirium. He was still very much in and out of it. They were checking him constantly to see his mental status, to see if he could tell them his name and where he was, and all of that. We did start to see improvement. They still would not let him eat or drink anything for the first, I think it was 2 days. So let me explain that. When you're a diabetic, which we had no idea that he was type 1 diabetic. Type 2 diabetes does run in my family. However, type 2 is controllable. That is something that is generally caused by obesity. Vari is type 1. That means it's genetic. So he was bound to get it regardless. He was going to get it at some point in his life. It's when your body basically starts killing the insulin cells that your pancreas is supposed to produce for you. And when you're a diabetic, if your blood sugars are really high, especially for an extended period of time, your body starts to build up what they call ketones. And these ketones are poison to your body. And your body no longer knows how to, sorry, I'm trying to, you gotta bounce the baby. So sorry, I'm like jumpy all over the place. Your body no longer knows how to take the water you provide it and transfer it into the cells. So at this point, Vari was drinking so much water and fluids that it was all going to his brain. His brain had been swelling for a while and we had no idea. All of these symptoms that he has, they all make sense. Like literally, if you look up some of these symptoms, it pops up type 1 diabetes. And in fact, when he was sick, I was like trying to figure out what kind of stomach bug it could be. And type 1 diabetes did pop up, but I'm like, there's no way I didn't think anything of it because I'm like, type 1 diabetes, like my son doesn't have type 1 diabetes. It doesn't run in our family that we know of. And so that's a whole nother story about all the symptoms. But so basically his body had been killing itself for a while. It was building up a lot of poison in his body. He was becoming severely dehydrated because his body didn't know how to transfer the fluids into the cells. What? Better? Now you can say hello to everybody? Is that better? Yeah. So they test for, obviously they test his blood sugars. They were well over 500. They had to do a blood test at the lab in order to get an accurate result because he was testing above what the meter would read. They also do blood test for, I think they call it CO, like, I want to remember it as CO because it reminded me of like carbon monoxide, even though that's not what it is. It's actually testing your hydration levels, like how dehydrated you are. When he got to the hospital, he was less than 3. Less than 3. That's deadly. Severely dehydrated. And a normal person like us is like 25 or above. And so they couldn't let him drink anything or eat anything so he couldn't have anything to drink or eat until his, specifically drink until it got above, this doctor wanted it above 12. So once it got above 12, they allowed him to slowly sip on water, but nothing else really, and not very much at an extended period of time because they don't want the brain swelling to go up. And then once his CO levels got to 15, this doctor decided to let him try and eat, but he couldn't eat. He was having a very hard time eating because when you're that sick, your stomach is one of the last things to kind of come back online, to kind of jump back in. So he was still feeling very nauseous. from like trying to eat anything would make him very nauseous. Also, it's hospital food. It's not that good. And, and, also when you're that sick, he hadn't gone to the bathroom, like poop, in, I guess, a few days, which I had no idea about. He never told me that. He's normally a daily pooper, so that was odd for him. And so he was very not constipated, it was backed up. So a few days in, he didn't have very much strength. He couldn't get in and out of bed. But we had to like sit him on the edge of the bed so that he could go potty in a container. They didn't give him a catheter or anything like that, but he had a little bit of strength where we got him to walk. They weren't going to let him out of the ICU until he could eat a decent amount of food and go to the bathroom. So he walked to the bathroom and he was able to go to the bathroom, and he felt so much better after. And then he was able to eat some food, and he didn't throw it up, stayed down. So he was kind of on the mend at this point. And he just continued to get better, and his CO2, I keep calling it CO2, his CO levels were going up and down. We got them to 18, but then they would drop back down to 13. And that's kind of just the process. And they're having to switch back and forth between different fluids, between the sugar fluids and then like the full force, because if your CO's, like your hydration level is dropping, that's not a good sign either. So they just had to keep going back and forth, and it was just a waiting game and a process, and getting his, he was on insulin now, obviously. And anytime he would eat food, he was getting insulin. They were still pricking his finger every single hour, and they were doing blood tests every 4 hours. So it was definitely quite a process for him. Obviously the worst part was the first couple of days, specifically the first day. I didn't sleep much. Anytime a doctor would come in, so every hour I'd be up and by his bedside, to hold his hand, for every finger prick, for every blood draw. I am still honestly pretty traumatized by it. I probably need to see some therapy about it. I beat myself up on a daily basis because I missed so many signs. So many signs. And he had been sick for so long, and I would get frustrated because he wasn't going to school or he wasn't doing something, and I'm getting frustrated with him, and meanwhile he's just fighting for his life. He's just fighting to live, and I had no idea that my poor baby was dying. He had a well child visit in January, and he passed. Like, there was no concerns. It's so, I wish they would test for it. I wish that, because come to find out, this hospital alone that we were at, love, you're bouncing around, you little bobblehead. Yeah. They get probably 3 or 4 of these cases a month. And unfortunately, kids don't often get diagnosed until around this age and in this situation, like near death. Vari's case was very bad. He was very, very ill. Like, he told me one day he didn't want to go to school because he didn't want to climb the stairs. And I'm like, okay, that's just being lazy. We have stairs, unfortunately, that you have to climb to get to class. You're going to school. And it's because he had no energy. He physically couldn't. like, I honestly can't talk about the details very much because I just like beat myself up about it. I know I shouldn't. I was testing things like gluten-free and dairy, and I just didn't connect the dots on all of the little symptoms that he was having or the signs. What's up? What? What's going on? Do you want to talk to the people? Do you want to say hello? Huh? We talking about Big Brother, huh? Yeah. Your best friend? Yeah. It was a scary time, for sure. And in the hospital, we had so much training. We basically went to school. We did like a kickstart class for diabetes. We had so many doctors and teachers and specialists come in to talk to us, to train us, to teach us, to just kind of like teach us about type 1 diabetes, teach us about what he's gonna need and what, you know, his life looks like going forward. And he can have a healthy, normal life. He can go to birthday parties. He can have cake and ice cream. He can have pizza. We can go to movie theaters and have popcorn and candy. Should you eat healthy? Most of the time, yes. But should you? Yeah, all of us should. We should all eat healthy. A low carb diet is not what he needs. Every type 1 diabetic is a little bit different. Every case is a little bit different. So keep that in mind as well if you know someone who is type 1 diabetic. Everybody gets a different amount of insulin. Everybody treats their insulin or their diabetes differently. He is so much better now, and I think that it's still an adjustment to have shots every day, and to we're no longer pricking his finger because we've upgraded to a sensor. If you guys want videos on diabetes, I can talk about it for hours, but he's no longer pricking his fingers every day, but he was pricking his fingers at least 6 times a day. We check his blood sugar levels before breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or essentially before every meal or snack. And at that time, he could only have up to 5 grams of carbs before he'd have to have a shot. So things like string proteins and stuff are free. So you only treat for carbs, is because carbs turn into sugar, and that's what spikes your blood sugar basically. So it is very frustrating for him. He has a hard time. It's definitely an adjustment, especially for a 10-year-old to go from being able to eat and grab anything that you want out of the fridge to having to pay attention and to get a shot if it's more than 5 carbs, to check your blood sugar before every meal. Not just that, but we also check it at bedtime, which is around 9:30. And also I do a safety check every night at 2 a.m. to make sure that he's not dropping. While yes, he was very high and that was deadly for him, having a low blood sugar is very deadly almost immediately. So it's important to track that as well. I know this is all confusing for you guys, but it's definitely been an adjustment for him. It's been an adjustment for us. But while it's an adjustment and stressful to have to adjust to having shots and finger pricks every day, I think the fact that he feels so much better, that he can eat food, the foods that he used to like to eat and not get sick. Like, he was at a point where he would like, I don't like that. I don't like that. And I'm like, you used to love this. Like, what do you mean you don't like this food? And it's because it would always make him sick. And it's because his blood sugar would spike and he'd get all those symptoms. Or it would drop. And so I think while it's definitely an adjustment for him, he feels so much better. He can ride his bike and he can go outside and he can go on walks with us and he can have food and not get sick. It's so much better. But St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, will forever be a day that I'll always remember, and it will always be scary. I know I did not lose my son, and there's so many people out there who have lost their kids, or family members or relatives. But I was close. I was so close, and I almost didn't bring him into the hospital that day. I almost didn't. And the only reason I brought him in is because I thought he had appendicitis. I was going to treat him for the flu at home because of COVID. And had I not brought him in, he could have died. And I just try to remind myself, I did bring him in. I did get him help, and he's better. And I can't focus on all the things that I wish I had caught, because I will just beat myself up until the end of time, because we always want to protect our babies, and I failed at protecting him from that. I wish that testing for diabetes or testing blood sugars was a standardized practice at well child visits. It doesn't run in my family, so there was no inclination to test for type 1 diabetes. Oh, you got those hiccups, huh? This is Mr. Hiccup Boy. He always has hiccups. Yeah, you always have hiccups. Always. You always have the hiccups. I wish it was tested for more regularly so that we could prevent these cases from happening, from it getting so worse or so bad. So just something for you as parents to look out for is excessive drinking more fluids than normal, going to the bathroom a lot, dry lips, dry mouth, feeling sick every time you eat, sleeping more, feeling nauseous, chronic headaches are all common symptoms of a high or low blood sugar. I don't want to freak you out, because those are also common symptoms for the flu, for just a normal headache, for a cold, for a growing teenager. Like, that is why we missed it. We missed it because they are normal symptoms and we thought nothing of it. So if you're concerned about anything, just ask your doctor and ask for a test. Ask for a blood sugar test if you think they have diabetes. I will say, for anyone who has a child who is diabetic, it's not a life sentence. They can still live healthy lives. They can still play sports, and they can go to college, and they can get married or whatever. They can live a normal, happy life and make all their dreams come true. They just have to maintain their diabetes and not let it get out of control. And I'm just grateful that my baby is here and alive today, and he's doing so good with the shots and adjusting and making this his new norm. I'm so proud of him. And obviously this video, just talking about it, is very hard for me. I could talk about diabetes all day long and treating it and prevention and how to manage it, but talking about what happened is very hard. I don't know. I feel traumatized by the event. My son as well. So, yeah, thanks for watching. I'm sure this was kind of mumble jumbled. If you have questions about it, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to help. Please keep in mind, I'm not a doctor, so everything in this video is from what I remember as a mom in a panicked state of mind, running on adrenaline. Also, if you are watching this, he was born after we got home from the hospital. If you haven't seen our labor and delivery story yet. And Vari being in the hospital and being so strong and brave and getting so many shots and pokes and prods is what helped me to get an epidural with him. I just kept telling myself, if my son can get poked and prodded 100 million times a day, I can take a little needle to the back. Ended up being 3 needles to the back, but we did it because my son was a pin cushion for 6 days, and he's still a pin cushion for the rest of his life. So anyways, I love you guys. If you have questions, let me know. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and we will see you all next time. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Oh, my poor baby.